May 27th. That's today's date. Today's time together, we are going to spend talking about collaboration during COVID-19. So really thinking about how are different organizations effectively collaborating through this disruptive time and innovating and coming together really to embrace the idea that we're better together. I know that's our Community Foundation tagline. But that will be a great discussion. And then we'll have a collaboration opportunities discussion, or you can join us in the main room to talk about Art Week Des Moines. So we have Yvette from Art Force Iowa and Rachel Boozy, who has been really helping us spearhead Art Week activities to talk about and kind of get our creativity inspired on how, as nonprofit organizations or individuals, you might collaborate in this kind of community-wide celebration of art and culture. Let's go to the next slide. All right, Suzanne Minnick, if you wouldn't mind kind of joining us via video, and our panelists here to talk about collaboration during COVID-19. My video is kind of wonky today, so I'm hoping that you're here. So let's see, I'm gonna invite Stephanie to share her video, and Aubrey, and do we have Dawn on video yet? Okay, let's invite Dawn. I know Dawn was, I'm gonna unmute you, Dawn, and I'm gonna ask you to start your video. We were chatting earlier. Suzanne, while they're getting started, do you just kind of want to tee up this conversation for me?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I am really pleased to have three wonderful community leaders joining us this morning to help kick off our conversation. It is no secret that in this time, we are all trying to figure out our space and how to have the greatest impact we can have with the many constraints that are surrounding us. And when we talked about the topic for today, these three wonderful women came to top of mind. Because not only have they been incredibly focused on their mission, but they have really utilized and leveraged the power of relationships. And so their innovation and creativity could only be possible because of the trusting relationships they've built leading up to today's time and place. So you don't want to hear me talk, you want to hear these wonderful leaders talk about how it is that leadership and that collaboration looks different today, what enabled them to get to that place of being able to do that, and what the results have looked like as you've brought partnerships to a whole different definition. So I don't know if did we decide on any kind of order?
Let's just go, we can go in the order that they're indicated here on the left-hand side.
Oh.
Maybe that would that would just
Perfect.
be one way to do it.
Dawn, that means I think you're first, Dawn. So
great. I was like, alphabetical, please. but no, I have to go before Aubrey. No. Suzanne, did you want us to go through each question or one at a time?
I just go through each question. I think would be great, and then we'll move to the next person. That probably is best. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Suzanne. Thank you, Community Foundation, for inviting Éxito to come and speak today. I'm really, I wouldn't be here really without you guys for definite, for sure, or the other speakers. So one of the first questions was, what did collaboration look like before COVID-19 for Éxito? And my philosophy with Éxito is just whatever is best for our kids, we're gonna do. Like, we get approached by a lot of people to partner, and it doesn't always work out well. A lot of people want to use Éxito's kids for photographs or for to add to their list and things like that. And it isn't always the smartest way to go about things, is just saying yes. So we've been burned a couple times, and we don't often get credit when people use pictures of our kids or invite our kids, or they go speak for their organizations, things like that. So I'm a little bit more jaded, I think. The relationships that I know and that I trust, Greater Des Moines, now Racy, different organizations like that, American Friends, are relationships that have been equally mutual, have always respected what we do, respected who we are, and respected our population. And so those are the people who were the first people to come out and step up and say, what do you need and how do you do what you do? How can we make it easier? How can we make it better? And those are the people who kind of rose to the top. I will say, for groups and meetings that have helped deepen relationships during this time, I really, it's been hard being on meetings. I think I probably got this announcement, but I hadn't. I was like, Wednesdays are the days that I go to feed our kids, and so our families, and so I didn't see it, I don't think, so I apologize for that. But some groups and meetings haven't. I go to an immigration meeting on Wednesdays or Thursday afternoons at 4, and I would like to say that it helps. It's a statewide meeting. And it doesn't really help because it makes me realize how much need is out there with labor and because we get updates on the packing houses and our families and the situations that they're going through. And it's like, I wish we could take on this and I wish we could take on that. So it doesn't always help, but we have so much bandwidth. And so I can't take that on, but it's in the back of my head of there's a real need that it seems. I've been writing a grant right now. What happens in our packing houses in agriculture continues to be the target of so much in the state, and it just breaks my heart. And so that's a hard one, but we can deepen our relationships with the labor people that are on the calls for that. How would I encourage others to deepen or make space for collaboration? This one might get me a little verklempt here, but I think, in The Art of the Turnaround, it's a great book on fundraising from the Americans for the Arts. And they talk about relationship. But I think during a time of crisis, it's the same with our families. Like, we go to the people that we trust and that we care about. We couldn't serve food to our families unless Greater Des Moines was there, unless Knock and Drop was there, unless First Unitarian Church. We hadn't built that relationship, and a lot of our funding has come in from that church because of our relationship over the years. And we've worked a lot. American Friends, Erica Johnson and I have worked a lot on building relationships, trying to get a Latino voice in the community in places of leadership. And I don't know how much of our work has influenced this time, but Community Foundation coming to us and saying, what do your constituents need, changed so much for the landscape of Des Moines, I think. I will definitely say the Mid-Iowa Health Fellowship, Suzanne and Denise and Rick and Sarah, I know that they became champions for us at that time for the undocumented families. There's no question. And now I know how much Brianne and Angie are behind us as well. And it will change Des Moines for sure, definitely. And so, in relationships, you have to be kind. You have to be really open. Not everybody's going to do exactly what you need them to do or how you want them to do it, but you have to be grateful for what they do provide. And and you need to be able to do more. Sometimes it's hard to be able to do more. The fact that I don't have to go pick up food, that Knock and Drop is doing that work and making it possible for us. So we try to get back to them as much as possible, make it as easy as possible for them to do what they're doing too. And it's a time where you can collaborate across the world, right? We're doing mental health sessions for our youth on Thursdays. And we've had somebody do stretching from Israel, happens to be my sister, but she's there. We have someone coming in from Italy. We have someone coming in from California. And so being open to collaborate broader has been wonderful. And I do, just want to give a huge shout out. One of the things that the disaster recovery did do this year was bring together Proteus and American Friends and Éxito to provide funding for those who don't receive stimulus checks or aid because of status, or their immigration status. And that was, and that's made a huge difference in our families' lives. I think we're out of money right now, but there's additional funding coming in. But we have families out there that don't have any support, and we're really grateful for that type of collaboration and that type of thinking from community leaders, from Suzanne and Angie, to say, what can we do? Because there are people that who's most at need in our community. I know that was conversation. Also to Embark, to the Art Center, to Wells Fargo, all of our funders who said, what can we do to help you? Like that makes a huge difference. So I'm really super, super grateful. And I think I'm done with my time.
Well, we're super grateful for you. And I think hopefully the funding community hopefully continues to be challenged in this time of really authentically asking our partners what it is you need and listening. And we haven't always gotten that right. So this has been a great learning experience, I think, for most in the funding community as well. So Dawn is with Éxito. I should have done better introductions here, sorry. I'm just moving straight in because I want to make sure we get to small group discussion. So Aubrey with Greater Des Moines, can you share a little bit about the questions we posed? And yeah.
Happy to. So one of the questions was, how did your organization, like Dawn said, approach collaboration before COVID, and how has it changed? Collaboration has been the key for any of Greater Des Moines' work since we started. So when we just got started, it was me and Linda Gobberdeal. So we knew that as a small, 1.5 person team, that the only way we were going to see change or make change happen was with other partners in the community. So, I think that's the part where we've been really lucky, is that we have been able to build these relationships just through, talking to all these different groups and organizations and asking, how can we support you? What do you do? Because I think if anything, we are learning, there's not any one entity that can do all the things for everybody. So it's so helpful if we could all take our little pieces and do the best that we can there. So before COVID, one of our biggest collaborations and partnerships has always been within the food recovery space, our food rescue transportation program. And that's been an opportunity for us. We're partnering, at the time we were partnering with Wesley Life, Meals on Wheels, to pay their drivers to go pick up food from Come and Go and then deliver them to food pantries, but also apartment complexes and some of those maybe non-traditional partners and places where we knew that they, again, that's one of those places where they know where people are that need food or could use an extra meal, so they should have the food. So that was working really well. And then obviously COVID, once that hit, the biggest change for us was Wesley Life. They obviously saw a huge spike in their services and what was needed. So we needed to give them back their drivers. So they needed that time to do all the extra work that they were doing. So that did open space for us. And because we had been doing it for so long and had some new partners to bring on new drivers and new partnerships, immediately. So we didn't have any delay in services. And there was definitely some transition. And one of the biggest pieces post-COVID, or when everything hit, was just where food could go. You know, a lot of places closed down, a lot, you know, our apartment complexes were one of those that were really struck immediately, because a lot of their food was going into a community room, and that just wasn't safe anymore. So, you know, a lot of that was, I would say, the key for our, any of our collaboration is just that open communication and dialogue. And so that's really how we were able to, you know, in talking with our partners, say, okay, so who could use more food? Who needs, you know, something else? Is there other places, you know, that we could be putting it? So we did have new partnerships come up. We had churches, we've had, you know, a great group through Embark, and, you know, some of these different partners that, you know, I think for us, what we realized was we don't need to be the ones, and we aren't the ones that are giving people food. We want those that have those trusted relationships already to have the food to give it to them. We don't need to be the ones that do it. So that really opened up the opportunity to have partnerships with some of these other churches and locations that were really stepping up and taking the lead and serving their community and their constituents. So do we need to get them refrigerators, you know, any of that? And we were able to then work with our apartment complexes to say, okay, let's think about this. How can we do this differently? So we kind of worked through our Hubble community contacts and said, they've done a great job of putting a menu out, and then their residents are able to say, call what they want. We gave them reusable bags, they bag it up and they put it out. So that stuff wouldn't be possible if we weren't talking and just trying to work through it with them. That doesn't mean everyone was able to do that. We still have a much smaller number of locations, but the food is all still going out there and getting to use, and that's really what we wanted. So I would say, for the groups or meetings that have helped us deepen relationships, I will say this one has been really helpful. I've been to every one of them, and just having a chance to see other people. I know I got to meet with, we've actually had a couple of our new food rescue partners come from these meetings, because usually in any meeting I'll be like, who needs food? Do you want some food? We'll get it to you. So that's kind of my MO. So I know Yvette, we got to kind of connect with her more and work with getting them. Again, they have the relationship with their students. We don't need to replace that. We just need to empower them to give more resources add to the good stuff they're already doing. So this has been helpful. The same thing, we've got our Hunger Free Warren County, Hunger Free Dallas County. Those groups have definitely started meeting more often and looking at how can we shift kind of what we've been doing, how we've been doing it. So Hunger Free Dallas County has shifted their pop-up produce program to, instead of once a month, to every week. We added more locations. Dawn and Zuli with Knock and Drop got us new relationships in Perry. So we've been able to move, there's an amazing church there. We've been able to get them like 150 boxes of produce a week that they move. And, you know, those are the kinds of, the best kind of thing that we're looking for, is just how can we support those people that are already out there doing good work. So in thinking through of what would I say about encouraging others to make space for collaboration during crisis, this is something my team and we talked about it. I'm like, what would you say? And really, I think the biggest thing is just giving everyone some grace. You know, if you have a good enough relationship, you know, we have to have clear communication. We have to be able, if something doesn't go the way we thought, to talk about it. I think that's how we've approached all of this, especially our Operation Fresh Produce Drop is one of our newer things that has started because there was all the food that was in excess, a lot of it was in bulk. So we've had these produce drops. We have a partnership with DMARC where we're trying to do some repackaging and getting that out. And that has all started just because we were able to talk and say, well, what about this? What if we tried that? How could it work? How could it not work? And be honest with each other, you know, and if something isn't working, our produce drop yesterday, we learned some lessons there. We learn a lesson every time, and that's a good thing. You know, this is something where we just want to always go into it that everyone has the best intentions. We're all doing the best we can, and just, you know, make sure that we're communicating and talking about it on a regular basis. And I'm, you know, reading a lot of Brene Brown these days too. So like she always says, clear is kind. So that's the biggest, you know, we just have to kind of assume that our partners are doing their best. We're all doing our best, and make sure that we're bringing our best as well, but also talking about it when things don't go well, because that's how we're going to figure it out and make it better. So it has been, you know, crazy year time right now, but I think this has also just given us the opportunity to try some things and build new partnerships and deepen some of those relationships. And I think that's been one of those silver linings that we've really found, is we love some collaboration before, and so this has really kind of been the collaboration's time to shine.
Wonderful. Thank you, Aubrey, for all that you've done. And I love bring your best and assume others are bringing their best. What a great sending for all of us today. So Stephanie with Russie, we're really thrilled. Talk about the ultimate network collaborator and the many voices that you strive every day to elevate. And you've really taken this concept of partnership to a whole different level, especially with some recent funding. I think that's just been announced from the Disaster Recovery Fund. So could you maybe comment on the 3 questions that have been posed as well? Welcome.
Sure. Thank you so much, Suzanne, and thank you for having me and for inviting Russie to be part of this discussion today. So before COVID, Russie, for anyone that isn't aware, we are not a direct service provider. We are a network collaborative of stakeholders that serve refugee and immigrant communities within Central Iowa. So our organization is made up of our refugee resettlement agencies. There's, well, 3, I guess, technically, but 2 in Central Iowa. We have some of our bigger service providers like LSI and Embark. We have all of the different like school districts that serve them, the employment agencies that work with them. We have all of the legal partners. So, you know, anybody that's serving refugee communities or has a stake in making sure that their transition as they start a new life here in Central Iowa is as welcoming as possible, are invited to be part of our network. We have a little under 700 members, and so our goal is really just to make sure that if there are programs, if there are resources that refugee communities or immigrant communities can utilize to help with that transition or the reacculturation, that everybody has, you know, equal knowledge to it, has equal access to it, that we're making sure that we're including the refugee and immigrant voice when we're creating programs like that, or, you know, offering different services. So before COVID, we had most of my time, you know, with Russie is spent kind of out in the community, meeting with a lot of our ECBOs. So if you're unaware, ECBO is an ethnic community-based nonprofit. So our refugee and immigrant led organizations. I think a lot of times our bigger, like the majority of our community, you know, knows of only a few. Like Embark is always thought of as an ECBO here in Central Iowa. But, you know, there are over 20. There's 24 that we had talked with about applying for that funding with the Disaster Relief Fund. So just, you know, trying to make sure that we're out meeting with them as much as possible. When we have our quarterly meeting, which, you know, anyone is welcome to attend and to learn more about the efforts of the resettlement programs and to learn what's going on in Central Iowa. But a lot of these leaders, a lot of these community leaders, a lot of the ECBO leaders are, you know, a lot of times are unable to make it to meetings in the middle of the day. If they're working in, you know, a school district in Grimes, to ask them to be at a meeting at 2 p.m. in central Des Moines can be impossible. We have a lot of community leaders who are working in packing, who are working in manufacturing, and don't have paid time off to just come to these meetings. So a lot of time before COVID was spent going out and just making sure that we were being as inclusive of all of our communities here as possible. So yeah, we have about 24 organizations that we work with. They serve together at least 40,000 people in central Iowa. Post-COVID, I just, the ability for people to really come together, you know, in this kind of time of crisis and just put aside maybe if there are, you know, political differences or if there are trust issues that had existed previously. A lot of our agencies work with like minimal funding, and so really kind of sometimes have to, you know, compete with each other to obtain it. And so that's, you know, that was before COVID. I mean, and still now too. That's something that's, you know, that's something that's a big barrier when it comes to our organizations being able to work together to the best of their ability. So. But during COVID, a lot of our agencies have been able to kind of put that aside or, you know, realize that, you know, that serving their students or serving their community members, you know, is really their priority. And yeah, what Dawn said earlier about whatever works best for our students, like we're going to do that. I think that a lot of our community leaders have had that same attitude. So, you know, whatever's gonna help our refugee and immigrant communities the most, they're on board. So that's been really, it's been yeah, just incredible to work with and to see that kind of transition take place. For groups and meetings that have helped deepen relationships or collaborations, you know, really there have been a couple of different meetings that occur regularly for our refugee and immigrant communities. But I think that the most, and you know, meetings like this are very, very helpful. And you know, just organizationally, it's great to be able to hear other leaders talk about what it is that they're going through, some ideas that have worked for them, this kind of out of the box thinking as we're all mitigating this, you know, this crisis for the first time. But when it comes to our agencies specifically, the media, like the things that I think that have helped the most are really just some of the more like smaller group meetings. I think there are a lot of different, there have been a lot of different community calls. So some that have specifically served our Burmese communities, some that have specifically served our Bhutanese communities or Nepali communities, some that have specifically served or have specifically targeted some of our African communities, and these shared spaces and people talking about what they're seeing, you know, hearing the efforts on what's working for, especially for the people that are working in, that are considered essential workers, that are working in packing, who are a lot of times, you know, the most affected by COVID. But just having these kind of smaller, safe spaces where people are able to really just share what's working, what's not working, share what they're seeing, you know, for people to be able to really band together. Because, you know, like, yeah, Aubrey had mentioned how collaboration really has been key. And that, I mean, that really can't be more true within our refugee and immigrant communities, because, you know, for as long as I think a lot of our agencies have felt that they've had to work siloed apart from one another, I think that they're seeing how much more powerful that they are together. And you know, I'm very hopeful that you know, level of openness and that level of trust continues afterwards. Encouraging others to make space for collaboration. Again, just kind of coming from a refugee immigrant community specific focus, I can't stress enough, if you're ever looking for input from our refugee and immigrant communities, I think being really intentional about your ask, being intentional about going to the organizations, about going to the communities, some of our communities don't have formal community or ethnic community-based nonprofits or 501. Some of them just have community leaders or faith leaders. But just making sure that you're being intentional and going to them and really asking for their input. Because again, if you have a meeting at 10 a.m. on Tuesday and you're inviting them to participate, and again, with COVID, with things being online and people being able to join virtually has increased our attendance and people's ability to participate in things during the day greatly. But still, if someone's working in packing or manufacturing and they are not able to join on a computer in the middle of the day, it doesn't mean that they're not interested in participating or that they don't have you know, things or ideas to contribute, or they don't want to take these resources back to their communities. But you know, if you can just make sure that you're doing your best to engage them kind of where they're at, you know, I think everybody really does you know, want what's best for their community. Everyone's doing their best, and yeah, giving them the benefit of that doubt is what, you know, is just it's absolutely necessary to make a genuine relationship there. So
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Stephanie, and thank you to all three, Aubrey, Stephanie, and Dawn, for offering just your insights. I'm gonna read: be intentional, do the best we can, give grace to one another, bring your best, assume the best others are bringing their best, build on trusted relationships, be kind, be open, be grateful, and always be mission focused. So thank you all. We're gonna break now into the different small groups. Hopefully you've all been putting your name, a number in front of your name, so that Brianne can work her magic behind the scenes. So do that, and then I'm going to kick it over to Brianne to give actually more of the logistical guidance. But again, thank you, Aubrey, Dawn,
Sure.
and Stephanie.